What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WWE Network and Chill, where I, Graham Jason Matthews, break down all the original content I watch on the WWE Network as well as on the E! Network, as today we're talking Season 5, Episode 2 of Total Bellas, entitled The Book of Bella. So I thought the Season 5 premiere, as I discussed last week, of course, here on the channel, was up and down. I thought the stuff with Brie and Brian was really heavy, but not in a bad way. Like, it was all real issues, and not to say that the stuff with Nikki and Artem weren't real issues, but it felt a lot more like, oh, kissy kissy, lovey lovey, like nothing real of, nothing of much substance there, okay, I'll put it that way. I really liked this episode a lot more. It wasn't like two separate stories. The whole episode was really about Brie and Nikki approaching their mom and dad about the fact that they're writing an autobiography about their lives, and that they want to get clearance from their mom and dad to write about their rough childhood, which a lot of us knew nothing about. I've never really heard. I mean, we knew the dad wasn't really in the picture. He was on an episode of Total Divas years and years ago, like maybe first season. And Brie actually acknowledges that here, not that it was on Total Divas, but that she's kind of kept in contact with her dad since then. Nikki, not so much. So anyway, we'll start from the beginning and work our way up to that point. But Nikki and Artem, they discuss her new home and, how she's moving in, and she kind of wants to help. She wants Artem to help her do an inspection instead of her. And Artem's like, well, I'm not living here, so why are you making me do it? Which is a very real thing to not complain about, a real, gripe to have. He's like, it's not my house, or why are you making me do the inspection? That doesn't make any sense. So anyway, this is where Brie and Nikki decide to, make it known that they're writing an autobiography and that they want to write about their childhood, but they need to make sure with their parents that it's okay to put it out there. Nikki talks about how she hasn't seen her dad in over 5 years. They mention how her dad got remarried, has 2 kids now. He's seemingly in a much better place, and Brie would know, because she is, instead of Nikki, as opposed to Nikki, actually kept in contact with her dad without her mom knowing over the last number of years, since they probably first reconnected on an episode of Total Divas a number of years ago. Nikki said that she wants to reconnect with her roots, because I think he lives in Mexico now, or Mexicali, which I believe is a part of California. She wants to go back to her childhood and all that other stuff, to a certain extent, not the bad parts, obviously. And Artem encourages her to try to go out there and try to reconnect with her dad, despite the fact that, it might be awkward. They haven't seen each other in a long time. So we find out that Artem is a really good builder. He's very hands-on. He makes all of his own stuff in terms of, like, the stuff at his house. Like, he just rebuilds everything himself, which is kind of cool. Nikki sees it as a win-win, where he can help her with her home, and, he can kind of help her do the inspection and hopefully help her rebuild everything that has an issue and all this other stuff. And she's like, oh, why wouldn't it be a problem? I get to spend more time with him. He gets to fix my shit, not even really realizing that she's kind of asking too much of him, stuff that really isn't his problem, especially coming off that conversation from the Season 5 premiere, where she said, I don't really want you living with me just yet, despite the fact that she was the one that threw that idea out there in the first place. So I absolutely agree with Artem that he's in the right here, and that he should probably not be doing as much work for her as he is currently. So anyway, the Bellas meet up with their mom, who reads through the rough draft of sorts of the chapter where she's talked about in the dad. And they decide to leave Dad's addiction in. I guess he had a very bad addiction to alcohol. His alcohol addiction. That's kind of why he was as bad of a dad as he was. I mean, obviously you can't just blame it on the alcohol. I mean, that's a choice, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and talk about the morals of alcoholism and all that other stuff, but he kind of mentions that later, and I'll bring it up a little bit later on. But anyway, the bottom line is that they did decide to include the dad's addiction in the book. Kathy gets really upset that they remember their childhood so negatively. And after reading it, it kind of takes her to a negative place. And Nikki said that, she hopes that her dad's in a much better place now, and he's a much better person. And Brie, this is really where the shit hits the fan. During this conversation between Brie, Nikki, and the mom, Kathy, Brie reveals to Kathy that she's actually been keeping in touch with her dad this entire time. Kathy's really close with Brie, even closer to Brie than she is with Nikki. So she takes this really hard as, you were holding this from me? Why? Why would you lie to me? All this other stuff. Brie actually told Nana, their grandmother, Kathy's mother, before Kathy even knew. Kathy was really the only one that didn't know that Brie was keeping in touch with the dad. Nikki knew, the Nana knew, the grandmother, but not Kathy, which really hurts her feelings. Brie, I guess, was the one who encouraged Brie. Did I say Brie? I meant Brian. Daniel Bryan was actually the one who encouraged Brie to get back in touch with her dad, because his mindset was, listen, I don't even have a dad. I would kill to be able to reach out and talk to him, even though I understand what he did. I understand, he really hurt you guys and all this other stuff, and he may not deserve it. But I would kill to have my dad here right now, because Brian's dad actually passed away about 6 years ago, right after he won the World Championship at WrestleMania 30. So I guess it was kind of him. It was because of Brian that she ended up continuing to talk to her dad. So Kathy gets really, really upset about this, because she's like, I was the one who never left. Why would you want to go back and talk to him? He's a piece of shit. She doesn't say that, but she's kind of what she's implying here, that she was always the good parent. She watched out for her kids. Why are you going behind my back? I don't appreciate it. Kathy's like, listen, I read the whole draft here, and you guys didn't see everything that happened. You may think you do, but you didn't. You didn't see everything. You don't know everything that happened. Reading this brings up a lot of pain for me. And while she was with Brie and Nikki, she thought a lot of times, can I survive on my own? If I left right now with the kids, can I survive on my own? Can I support my kids? It was a really rough situation without getting into any real specifics outside of his addiction. She didn't really say that he beat her, although I probably wouldn't put it past him if he was drinking at the time, I don't really know. I haven't read the book. The book I don't think is out yet, and they don't really discuss specifics of what he did aside from just being a shitty father. But I feel like if it was an abuse thing, a physical abuse thing, they would have mentioned that, but that's not really the point. It doesn't really matter. Anyway, so Kathy says, she calls Brie very insensitive, and then she storms off. She gets really upset. Brie calls her insensitive, and Kathy just storms off. So Nikki and Brie, while they're driving off, Nikki's like, Brie kind of brings up how Nikki didn't really expect anything to happen from that. And Brie's like, listen, the reason I don't bring up dad in front of her or to her is because this is exactly what I thought would happen. She kind of freaks out. She hates dad. I don't really want to hear about it. Nikki admits that she hates being in the middle. Any parent with divorced kids, I'm sure, understands where they're coming from. I have divorced parents, so I completely understand where they're coming from here. I'm sure many parents, or rather many kids of divorced parents, can kind of relate to that, where you don't want to pit one parent against the other, but it kind of feels like you are in certain respects, in certain situations. She just wants Brie to be more sympathetic and kind of think about it from Kathy's side and, understand how it may have hurt her. Brie just doesn't want her to freak out on her every time they bring up the father, blah, blah, blah. So they end up going to see their dad. Brie's very nervous to go see her dad again, because she doesn't want to upset Kathy. So they have to come clean with the fact they plan on going to see their dad again, or rather not going to see him, but they're going to invite him to come visit them. Nikki fears that it may be awkward if they have anything in common. She hasn't talked to her dad in forever, so she doesn't really know what's going to go down. Artem admits that Nikki only really says things that kind of sound good in the moment, but doesn't really think long term. I don't know. I forgot what that was in relation to, but I wrote that down in my notes here. So the inspection doesn't go well, and she doesn't want to tell Artem to hurt his feelings. So they're at a hardware store, and they make a ton of sex jokes. I'm not really sure where any of this is going, but that's, I guess, what kind of happens. I guess that was the second story on this episode, the whole inspection thing, which is kind of dumb. But anyway, so what happened was, Brie hopes to make it up to her mom, so she and Kathy meet up for lunch. Kathy admits that she felt bad afterward, and they both talked to their respective husbands about it. Kathy, that being John Laurinaitis, and with Brie, that being Daniel Bryan. Kathy just said that she has guilt over what she put her kids through initially when she was married to their father. And she regrets not getting out sooner, which is why it's hard to kind of bring this story out to the world for everyone to know when it was kind of kept secret for a very long time. And Brie apologizes as well for how she acted. Brie then tells Kathy, because she wants to be completely honest with her, she tells Kathy that, listen, me, Nikki, and Artem, we're going to go out to dinner with our dad. And she's really, defensive about it. She doesn't, she gets very pissed in the moment. She eventually cools off, but, she's not too happy about them going to see their dad, or rather them reconnecting with their dad, and all this other stuff. So Nikki also talks about going back to the house thing. She said that she wants to make her home feel homey for Artem. Artem, speaking of who, he's actually kind of nervous to meet the dad too, because he's also meeting the dad, like I just said. So he's kind of nervous to how that's going to go. And before they meet up with him, they kind of debate, do we bring up the chapter of the book that we want to include him in? Do we bring this up with him when we see him? They don't really decide on anything. They decide, oh, maybe we'll wait on that because it's a little awkward if we reconnect after all this time and then say, hey, you're in this book. We kind of talk shit about you, blah, blah, blah. So they kind of hold off on that. The dad comes over. They drink wine. Nikki kind of talks about how the dad is a bit of a smartass and Artem is really sensitive. So he's kind of cracking jokes at Artem at his expense, and she's kind of worried about how it's going to go. Artem and the dad go out to go pick up his bags from the car, okay? And that's when Artem and the dad have a real brief heart-to-heart conversation about whether Artem's love for Nikki, whether their relationship is real, and in the sense that, like, do you actually love my daughter? Does she actually love you? And he says yes. And, it's a nice little heart-to-heart moment there, I guess. Kathy, meanwhile, talks to JJ, who, I'm not going to lie to you, I completely forgot was even in the family. I thought it was just Brie and Nikki for a second. I completely forgot about JJ. We have not seen him in a while. He shaved his head, looks totally different. He's the sibling of Brie and Nikki. He talks to Kathy about how she was always there, she supported them, and he really is not on the same page as Brie and Nikki. He has no desire to talk to his dad ever again. He thinks that he's a piece of shit, and yeah, the dad was the cool dad when he was a kid, but when it came down to having a supportive, nice dad, he just wasn't there, or he was just a piece of shit, So he doesn't really feel the same way that Brie and Nikki do. And he admits, I don't really want my dad in my life. I'm fine. He can go out and live his life, no hard feelings, but I don't really want him in my life. The dad then tells Artem, while they're at dinner, that he had to raise himself because his parents were dead, and then his grandfather or his grandmother who raised them also died, so he really had to raise himself. And I feel like he's kind of using that as an excuse for his behavior, because he also blames his addiction for being a bad father, because he was always a good father, he said. This is where I kind of feel he was being a little, maybe not facetious. That's the word I'm looking for there. Easy for me to say, I guess. Facetious, but like, I don't know, it was a little weird. Like, he was like, oh, it was the alcohol that made me such a bad dad. Like, at the end of the day, I'm not going to get in the whole morals and, philosophy and whatever of drinking and alcoholism. I'm not an alcoholic myself, so I can't really say. But, like, you can't solely blame it on the alcohol. There was a part of you that made that conscious decision to continue drinking, or to drink in the first place. Everyone has a different personality and whatnot, but I thought that was a little... First of all, I thought it was inappropriate for the dad to bring that up in front of Artem, of all people, not even the kids. Like, for him to say that to his own daughters, okay. But then for him to say that to Artem is a little... I don't know, I just thought it was a little strange. So, anyway, he said that one day he woke up and just stopped drinking. He stopped cold turkey, and he's been a decent father, I guess, ever since, at least to his current kids. He accepts what he did. He realizes that he can't dwell on the past, and has since moved on. While they're at dinner, Brie FaceTimes Brian, who talks to the dad. They kind of, say hi, do the casual small talk, whatever. The dad wants them to come visit him in Mexicali, which, again, I looked it up. I guess it's a part of California. I've never heard of Mexicali before, but I believe it's a part of California that's probably close to Mexico, I would imagine. But I believe it's an official part of California, not Mexico. Brie's never been, so they're like, yeah, I think that'd be a good idea. We're going to go visit him. And Nikki takes it in as, despite not really having lofty expectations for this dinner going in, she ends up having a really nice time and calls it a beautiful moment. So on the next episode of the show, they do cover what it's like going to visit their dad, his reaction to being in the book, I believe, because they did include that in the teaser and in the preview for the next episode. The mom freaks out again over dad-related issues. So I really enjoy this stuff because it's first of all, very real. It's not your typical staged reality series bullshit. Like the whole home stuff I thought was stupid, but anything having to do with the book, and including the mom and the dad, these are very real issues. Again, having been involved with divorced parents before, I completely relate to what they're talking about, so I really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was very enlightening. It was totally different from the first episode, which the stuff with Brie and Brian was not even brought up here. The whole thing about having a kid and whatever, that was not the focus of this episode. That was completely unacknowledged here, which I'm sure will be back at some point in the season, of course. But Brian was barely in this episode, despite being a big part of the first one, the Season 5 premiere. And that was really sad, hearing about the dead dog, Josie, and whatever. This wasn't really sad as much as it was, eye-opening in certain ways. So definitely check it out right now on the E! Network. New episodes every single Thursday on the E! Network, Thursday night at, I believe, 9 p.m. if I'm not mistaken. So I will get to a certain point where these reviews will be every week here in the channel on Sundays. Currently, that's just not happening due to other content I want to put up and stuff like that. But at some point, I believe these reviews will be up every Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. So keep an eye out for that right here in the channel. And yeah, we'll be back next week with another all-new review of Total Bellas. You can check out all my Total Bellas reviews right here on the channel on WWE Network and Chill. Check out the description box. You can check out more Network and Chill and more Total Bellas reviews dating back to Season 2. I'll probably go back and rewatch Season 1 at some point. And there's so few episodes that it's doable, it's manageable, but I just have to go out of my way to do it, you know? I'll probably go back and review Season 1 just to say that I did, and then we'll move on from there. So anyway, guys, have a great one. Hope you guys had a great Easter weekend. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.